Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Gyrl, and thank you all for joining. I'm really excited to welcome Beaonca into the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you here. So let's go ahead and get started. Why don't you tell everyone out there listening or watching who you are and what you do?
Yes, I'm Beaonca Ward. I am a certified dating coach and a marriage and family therapy graduate student. I have almost 5 years of experience now of helping ambitious women to build healthy long-term romantic relationships that are actually based on science. There's so much information out there right now on the internet and on podcasts where people are sharing relationship advice, but a lot of that information is not empirically researched or tested. So, to bridge that gap, I share evidence based tools and practices with my clients one on one so that their relationships are actually built to last them a lifetime and so that they actually feel good about their relationships as well.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. And I know we're going to dive into more of the work you do and your approach. But I think that's really important what you said. Yes, you do have a lot of people out here giving advice and a lot of people on the internet. I mean, you can Google anything and it's like, I always call it Google MD. I'm like, Google MD is just out here giving out like information. You don't know if it's right or wrong, but they're giving it.
Yes, it can be very
Well,
overwhelming.
yes. And I mean, and there's just so much of it that I feel like a lot of times people are intaking so much that they feel overwhelmed because they don't know what to do with the information that they find. So that's why I love having people on like you who are, experts in their areas. And also, for coaches, I'm a big advocate for people getting coaches, no matter like for what areas of your life, because it's just having that unbiased opinion of someone who is an expert in an area to be able to give you like all the tools that you need to make the right decisions for yourself.
Exactly. And I think that helps us to learn more about ourselves because we're always going to have certain blind spots that we don't notice. So, working with other people gives you the opportunity for someone to, call something out that they see
Mhm,
or to, just bring your awareness to maybe why you
mhm,
may be doing certain things that you didn't know
mhm.
about before.
Yes, yes. And relationships are a really good subject for that because I mean people tend to make the same, go for the same types of people, the same types of relationships, make the same mistakes, and oftentimes they're trying to solve it on their own.
Hmm.
So it's really nice to have, someone you can personally, a professional that you can turn to and work with.
Definitely, especially with like relationships too, mainly like romantic relationships.
Mhm.
They tend to teach us a lot about ourselves and we become really emotionally invested in them. And so we have these moments where we realize, oh, we actually need to learn how to like regulate our emotions a little bit better because it can be really challenging, even when you're in a healthy relationship, just to grow as a person, navigate life, be able to continually create like life goals with your partner. That can be really difficult for someone to do, especially if like you have a moment of conflict or you're upset that something didn't go the way that you wanted it to with your partner.
Mhm.
And that's really
Mhm.
like where my work kind of comes in.
Okay, awesome. I like that. All right, well, let's start talking about first differentiation of self. So, for anyone out there that may be like, huh? Never, like, what is that? Can you tell us what that is, please?
Yes, definitely. So, differentiation of self is really two different things. One, it is your capacity to regulate your emotions in high periods of anxiety. It is also your ability to remain a distinctly unique individual with your own mind, your own thoughts, your own values, while still being able to create a deep relationship built on integrity with another person.
I love that. Okay, I love this. So, of course, let's talk about how differentiation of self, how does it show up in dating?
Yes. So a lot of times we see this showing up with, people, maybe they don't even select certain partners that may be good for them. Maybe this
Mhm.
person that they're actively meeting, they probably really do fit into what it is that they want in a partner, but they reject this person because it doesn't go along with certain values that they've been taught from their family background. I've seen women do this where they will have a very suitable partner. Like, this is someone that they would be incredibly compatible with, and they'll reject them because they'll think to themselves, oh, I don't think that my mom would approve. I don't think that my dad would
Mm.
like this
Mhm.
person because maybe they're in this career field, or maybe they don't have this high level of a degree, but every single person in my family has like a
Mhm.
master's degree or PhD. So that is really a common thing that I see among a lot of women, especially nowadays with like online dating.
Mm. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's really an important example because it does happen a lot. But I like it because what you said earlier is that it's that regulation of emotions, right? Because emotions tie you to what someone's going to think. And oh,
Yeah.
my family, like, what is my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? This person isn't, they're not suitable because they don't make this amount, they don't have this, they don't, da, da, da. They don't fit the box of like checks, that my people are going to want me to have. So I think like that. And so the way I'm thinking or what I'm hearing, the way that, you approach it in your work, it feels very like, it's like logical.
Yes. Yes. It's very logical. And so, what I try to do with my clients is try to get them to a very rational place where they can
Mhm.
make good, informed decisions that they are happy and comfortable with. Because what I'm finding with the women that I work with, when they reject these partners, and now they end up in periods where they're stressed out, they're like, I can't find my person. Now they're stuck in
Mhm.
self-doubt. They think that it's impossible to find, this person that they can love and build this amazing life with. But it's because it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's like
Mhm.
you have this idea in your mind, and you're trying to do certain things so that this thing doesn't become true. But the fact that you are so invested in that thought, the things that you're doing are the things that actually end up happening. And it's like you literally made them happen because you went in certain directions
Mhm.
specifically to be like, I have to avoid this person or this thing, just because you are so preoccupied with how other people are going to receive that person, instead of listening to, how do you feel with this person? How do you receive them? Are you happy? Are you enjoying your time with this person? And really
Mhm.
using that as something to lead you and guide you on your decision making.
Yes, yes, yes. Sorry. I'm just thinking about what you're saying because that is just so true. I mean, there are a lot of people who do that. I'm thinking back to when I was single. I'm pretty sure I was doing those same exact things when I was younger because that is what we tend to lean towards is will my parents like this person? Will
Yeah.
my siblings like this person? And that is like the first thing, like you sort of remove yourself. It's like, no, but you're the person that has to be with this person. So you've
Yeah.
got to choose, you got to choose wisely. And like you said, you want to find someone that's a suitable partner that you can build and grow with. And the person that might check the boxes for your family, I mean, they may be somebody's, sorry, they might be trash, or
Yeah.
not a good partner for you.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
exactly. Exactly. And I've seen this happen a lot. And I will say, because I am a big advocate for sharing my own personal journey, my own stories, to help,
mhm,
inspire other people and to just remind them to give themselves grace, because we all make mistakes.
mhm,
You can't know what you don't know. And I have encountered this a lot, like in my own personal life years ago when I was actively dating and I was much younger. I would have a whole list of like
mhm,
criteria that I'm like, this person needs to tick off every single box, or I'm not even going on like a second date. But that's
Mhm.
really not a very grounded or a healthy way
Mhm.
to start off a connection with another person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's expectation, and oftentimes it's like unrealistic expectation for
Yes.
someone, and the person comes into the relationship already feeling as if they're not enough. And
Yes.
so, and then they're always just trying to like get to like they're thinking about that list and those things that you said you wanted and they needed to be, and they're always like chasing behind something that may not be obtainable in the end.
Yeah, you miss out on like being present with this person and actually
Mhm.
enjoying this connection, this bond that you're able to create with another person. And that's what you're really going to need in order to have a sustainable, healthy, long-term relationship. Like
Mhm.
it's impossible to have something like that if you don't even enjoy the company of the person that you're
Is
choosing.
yeah, definitely.
And that sounds like such a, like a simple little tidbit, but you'd be surprised how many people I work with their partners and they're married and they are unhappy with them. And I ask them these questions like, okay, how long has it been this way? How long have you felt like this about your partner? And it's
Mhm.
been a really long time, like people like 12 plus years that they
Mm.
feel that way and they remain with this person simply
Mhm.
because it fits into the ideal of things that their family is kind of grilled into their minds. So the thing with differentiation of self is that it is completely created through the dynamic of your relationships with other people. So it's established in your childhood with your parents
Mhm.
along with your attachment style. So, attachment style and the concept of differentiation of self do kind of go together. We know that people who have insecure attachment styles of any kind are also much more likely to have a low level of differentiation. So it this concept really exists kind of on a spectrum. There's never going to be one moment, one point in time where someone can say, I am now the most well differentiated that I can
Mhm.
possibly be, right?
Mhm.
There's no distinct point in time.
Mhm.
However, there are little things that you can do to kind of build a stronger self concept and have more confidence in the decisions that you are making while you're building these connections with other people. And
Mhm.
so that's really kind of like the focus of my work and what other mental health professionals are talking about whenever we bring up this concept. It's not something that is even well known. Like I had never even heard of this concept until I started my master's program.
Mhm.
A lot of people do not know about it, but it's incredibly important. And the reason why I, gave a little bit of the background and said that it's created in your childhood is because since it is built within the confines of your relationships, it can only be changed within the confines of your relationships. So this is not something that you can do on your own. You either have to change this among your family, a relationship with your friends, or with your romantic partner. And it's also possible as well, maybe in your romantic relationship, you tend to be a little bit more well differentiated than you are in your friendships or than you are with
Mhm.
your family, which makes
Mhm.
sense, right? Because the relationships with people who are important to us in our lives, we have different dynamics with them. Certain people
Mhm.
we might weigh certain people's opinion a little bit more than another's.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's really like the starting point in terms of you, exercising your own mind and maintaining a deep sense of integrity as you're relating with other people. Because I see a lot of women in dating who will literally change who they are to fit
Mhm.
the ideal of the person that they're interested in. They will change what they look like, they will change their hair, the way they speak, the hobbies that they're choosing to engage in, not because these are things that they actually want, but because they think if I do these things, I will be loved and accepted by this person. And that is what we
Mhm.
are looking at when we say someone is more low differentiated or not as
Mhm.
well differentiated as someone else. And that's not something to be shameful about, but it is something to look at and consider, right? Because
Mhm.
not everybody has such a hard time with this as others.
Right. Yeah. And so you mentioned the romantic relationships. So let's talk about that because that is something that you see a lot of times, or when people, get into relationships and it's almost like you don't even know who they are anymore. You're like, oh,
Yes,
wait. I mean, so like if you have friends, I'm just, they have a partner and it's like every time you see them, you see the partner. And it's like every time
yes,
you're going to hang out, it's like, but it's both people, and you're just kind of thinking like, I mean, can you not hang out by yourself? I mean, or I think too, like it can also happen too when people have children. So it's
yes.
like between the marriage and the children, then they just lose who they were, and they're just like the mom and the wife to that person.
Yes, and that all goes back to this concept. Someone who is on the higher end of the spectrum is okay with being alone. They're okay with being separate from another person and saying, hey, look, I have totally different beliefs than you do, but I
Mhm.
still have the integrity. I'm still secure and safe enough within myself to share those opinions and thoughts with you and
Mhm.
know that I will still be loved and accepted for those thoughts and those opinions.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, and I think that's important because it's like when you just go down that road, you almost just lose yourself, and I don't, it's like you see it. And I know there are probably people listening, people watching who have had like friends who maybe you sort of experience like, oh, one minute they were like this, and then all of a sudden it was just like I didn't even know who that person was. But I think it's true to what you said. It's like it starts with like you have to be okay with like I'm okay with like being alone. And I think that's like one of the things that starts like even when I was dating before I got married, I was like, okay, the one thing I'm never wanting to do is lose who I am as a person. And I
Mm.
want to always be the same kind. Well, obviously I want to grow and to evolve into a better me. But like I wasn't going to become like somebody that like the person I was dating wanted me to
Yeah.
be. And also like to for someone to do that, it makes you think about like, well, are they do they understand differentiation of self, like you have
Yeah.
to like look at that side of them, because if you're like twisting yourself into a pretzel to be something for someone else, I mean you have to like sort of ask yourself like, let me look at them and see like who they are, and what matters to them, just like you said, like understanding those values and making sure they align.
Yes, that is incredibly important, especially because we know in the field of marriage and family therapy that people tend to choose partners who are at a similar level of differentiation that they are. And that
Mhm.
is why it's important to, really just get to know yourself. And you can always get to know
Mhm.
yourself even when you're with a partner. I think
Mhm.
sometimes on social media nowadays, personal development is kind of glamorized. People think it's like this huge, frilly little thing, but it's actually really difficult to do. It's hard work
Mhm.
and it takes a lot of time, a lot
Mhm.
of effort to learn new concepts, implement them, learn things about yourself. And it can be really hard to get yourself to a space to feel comfortable to work on these things and change them, especially because you've been doing them for so long in your life.
Mhm.
Any of these things, you might not even notice that you're doing or realize how it looks. Some other ways that I've seen this come up that people, tend not to really think much about, but it is related to this concept as well, are people who have a tendency to kind of like stonewall their partners, right?
Mhm.
If anyone listening to this episode doesn't know what stonewalling is, Stonewalling is when you pretty much ignore your partner or withdraw your attention and your focus from them in a moment of conflict. So think of the person when you're having a conflict with a partner who tends to just like stop talking. They won't
Mhm.
even respond to you anymore in the conversation, or they just get up and they walk out. They don't say anything to you. That is actually incredibly destructive to a
Mhm.
relationship. We see that over time, couples who stonewall frequently tend to have more bad interactions in the future with their partner. Their partners tend to feel like they don't have a sense of trust and safety, regardless of how long you've been together. And
Mhm.
those couples are much more likely to divorce or break up.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's really important, that piece of this concept of regulating your emotions
Mhm.
before you start to talk to someone, before you engage in a conversation that is going to make you probably feel some kind of way, if it's
Mhm.
something that's bothering you. And I want to emphasize here that your emotions are not the problem. It's the way that you are expressing them with your partner.
Mhm.
That is the thing that
Mhm.
we have to work on here. It's okay to
Mhm.
be upset, sad, frustrated, angry, but you need to be able to have tools to get yourself into a place where if you start feeling that way with your partner, you can say to them, "Hey, babe, I want you to know I really value what you want to share with me on this topic. Right now, I'm feeling this emotion. Let
Mhm.
your partner
Mhm.
know. I think it would be better if maybe we can revisit this at another time and then give them a timeline. Like, say, I'll come back to this in an hour, or I would like to come back to this
Mhm.
maybe even tomorrow so that I have some time to cool off so that I'm more level headed and can better receive and listen to what it is that you're sharing
Mhm.
because I really care about you." That
Mhm.
does so much to
Yeah.
make your partner feel so incredibly safe with you. It's really
Mhm.
amazing.
I love that. I love that you said that. So two things. You said first is about just the personal development. And yes, it does seem to be like a very like hot thing right now. And everybody's talking about personal development. But like you said, what's important is that you have to understand that it is work. It's a work. And you will do the work, you will slip, you will backslide while doing the work. You will, you'll learn things about yourself. You'll learn things that you love about yourself, things you are like, oh wow, yeah, that is me, like I'm doing that. But it's important to do the work. Like you can't just, and I know people are always like, oh yeah, there's so much on, line, there's so many things you can read. But like I said, I am always an advocate for therapy. I'm always an advocate for coaching because I feel like having that accountability partner. I mean, yes, there are things that you can do online. You can find, like listen to podcasts, like, but you can't like find that accountability piece, which I think is so key. So thank you for saying that and for just um, for what you're doing in the space, because I, even in just this conversation, I've never heard it being called like stonewall, but I'm like, okay, yes, yes, I've seen that. I mean, and even in my time of going to therapy, that's something I had to start doing. That was a tool that I learned from my therapist, was like when I wanted to have a discussion with my husband about something, it may not have been the right time because I'm like, okay, nope, need to take like 5 steps back and just walk away. But I need to tell him, like, I need to say to him, like, I do want to talk about this. I just, right now, it's just not like, I may say something that's going to come out crazy. So I want to be respectful. I want to be respectful, and then let me get back to you and like give it like an hour. And so I think that that really does work because the person then feels like you said, it's like, oh, okay, well, she's not just brushing off the topic. We're gonna discuss it, but it also allows each person to give the other person some grace.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I was just telling another woman that I was speaking to yesterday, another business owner. We were on live together and we were talking about relationships. And I want to share something I said to her, which was, can you imagine how differently we would show up in our partnerships if we showed up in the same way that we did with our kids? Right? Because gentle parenting is a huge thing that's becoming
Mhm.
popularized nowadays. And I'm totally a huge supporter of that. I think
Mhm.
parents should be gentle and also direct with their children.
Mhm.
However, what I'm seeing is it's like there's so many ambitious women that I'm working with, and they tend to be so sweet, so kind with their kids, but they don't
Mhm.
approach conversations the same way with their partner. And it has to do with that emotion regulation. Like you
Mhm.
feel these stressful emotions, you're usually feeling something that doesn't feel good to you in your body, in your personal experience. And that is why you're bringing it up because it doesn't feel good to you. And that's
Mhm.
why it's important to learn skills to work through that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that because that is something. Yeah, like it's like, oh, I'm gonna be this way with my kids, but when it comes to the relationship, that the partnership I'm in rather, well, no. I'm just a but wow.
Yes, it's like
No. Yeah,
Yes, it's like your partner really wants to be loved and cherished by you too. They want to
exactly.
receive that from you and you want to receive that from them as well. So
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
another way to really offer yourself and your partner some sort of grace.
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
wanted to bring up too, another way that I see this concept coming up that people may not be really thinking about when they're listening to this episode is people also tend to kind of like almost like cut off their partner or other significant people in their lives when they start feeling these like heightened emotions. Think of like
Mhm.
that one cousin or that one sibling you have in the family who was like, I don't want to deal with mom. I don't want to deal with the
Mhm.
rest of y'all. So they never show up to any family functions. That is
Mhm. Mhm.
the one that everybody has to like kind of try to each communicate with and see,
Yeah.
are they going to show up to this thing? Are they coming here? The people who have a tendency to do that also are usually somewhere lower on this level
Mhm.
of differentiation scale. And another way that this shows up too, especially in times of conflict, is that someone who is not very well differentiated has a tendency to pull other people into the conflict that they have with their partner as a way to
Mm.
decrease the anxiety that they feel. So, an example of that would be, think of someone who maybe always calls their mom or a friend when they have an argument with them,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? They're always looking for this person to give some type of feedback on what just
Mhm.
happened with your partner. And you're doing
Mhm.
it because when you do that, it feels good to you. You no longer are feeling as anxious as you did when you picked up the phone. And though that may feel good to you in the moment, objectively speaking in your relationship, that sets up something that is dysfunctional because it's avoidance. It's a way for you to not work through what you're feeling with your
Right.
partner and
Mhm.
resolve it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are great examples because I think that a lot of people do that. I think that
Yes, a
happens
lot.
more times than not. And that's really good. How can people become more well differentiated so that they can avoid, entering into dysfunctional relationships?
I always recommend the best thing for you to do is have your own journey of self discovery because you can work on this no matter
Mhm.
whether or not you are on the lower end or you are already on the higher end and you still have some more work to do. Really, really take the time to reflect on who you are. What is it that you like? What do you enjoy in your life? And start doing more of that. And that sounds so incredibly simple, but I've literally seen
Mhm.
that change people's lives. Like,
Mhm.
it can be really difficult to take time continually in your life and see things about yourself that maybe you don't usually think about. Taking
Mhm.
time to consider, you know, maybe what are some ways in my own life where I'm just doing so much for other people and not so much for myself? And then ask
Mhm.
yourself, why am I doing that? Right?
Mhm.
Why is it so much easier for me to compromise with what my partner wants, but you realize you're never really, it's not a real compromise. Is at
Mhm.
that point it's just kind of like a continual sacrifice that's dysfunctional because you're
Mhm.
not a compromise is supposed to be something where both of you are able to win in a situation, not one person wins and one person is always losing.
Mhm.
But really taking time to ask yourself these things. What are your goals for your relationship? What would you want your relationship to look like? That's another good place to start. Just literally taking out a journal, asking yourself that, and writing down with as many specifics as possible. What would this dynamic look like? How would you speak with your partner? How would they speak with you when a conflict comes up? How would you resolve it? Is resolving it even a thing? Because I see this a lot with couples as well that I've worked with. You know, they have a tendency to argue and then nothing ever really gets
Mhm.
resolved. Like they don't revisit it later and they think because they didn't revisit it that that was a form of it being resolved, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it is, but not always.
Yeah. Yeah. It could, yeah, because it chances are it's going to come back up. It's going to come back up in a different form, but probably the same like issue that you didn't resolve. And I think it's also something important that you said is, really just understanding like who you are and what you enjoy doing. Because like, so many people do just go along to get along for, a lack of a better way of saying that. It's like, yeah, well, this is what my significant other likes to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do that. And then it's almost like I'm being like this martyr because I'm allowing for them to do the thing that they always like to do. But then that also like creates resentment. So I think like to your point, like it's really important to be able to like write down and understand the things that matter to you and to be able to make sure that you get to do some of that on your own, but then you also get to introduce that into your relationship where you can as well.
Exactly, because here's the thing. If you are in a healthy relationship with someone else, you'll be able to share your differing thoughts and opinions with
Mhm.
them. You'll be able to share what it is that you journaled and wrote with your partner, and you'll both be able to partner together and work on
Mhm.
bringing that to life.
Mhm.
If you're not
Yes.
in a healthy relationship, you're not going to be able to do that. And I'm telling you that there's a couple things with the dynamic, the structure of your relationship, the dynamic between power and control with the both of
Mhm.
you that is out of place.
Mhm. Yeah. Awesome. I love that. I love that. These have been some really good, thank you, first of all, for some really good examples. I think like this may be a topic that people may not have like understood or didn't really understand differentiation of self from the scientific standpoint, but I think it's been very helpful and you've described it and broken it down in a way that is I think tangible for us to take some good takeaways, but then also you've given us some really good tips on how we can work on ourselves and also apply that in our relationships as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. And I'm glad to hear that it's all, making sense because it can be difficult when you hear like these topics to understand like what people are really talking about. Sometimes they kind of like nerd out a little bit and they keep using all these terms, and you're like, okay, I get it, but what does this look like though?
I think, yeah, you did a good job of helping to make it like
Yeah.
real life. And, so we appreciate that. Okay, Bianca, tell everybody out there listening or watching how they can work with you if you have any programs that this community can take advantage of.
Yes, absolutely. So right now I'm working with all of my clients one on one, and we can work together with wherever your specific level of differentiation is, I will work with you on identifying that. We'll get crystal clear on what that looks like and how that's either showing up in your dating journey or in your current romantic relationships. I've also helped women with this who are actively in their marriages as well, and using that as a way to improve and to feel better about the marriage that you're in. And so when I work with my clients, I tend to share a lot of different tools, different practices. There's a lot of work that we do with being crystal clear on how these things are showing up and why they're showing up that way. There are definitely going to be some concepts that, unless you're working specifically in the marriage and family therapy field, you probably never even heard about or recognize that that's a why certain things are showing up the way that they are for you. So
Mhm.
I try to break that down as much as possible. And so if you are wanting to work with me, I highly recommend that you set up a free 30-minute coaching session with me. I'm offering that right now. It's just for like a limited time, and I'll work with you, and we will get really clear as well on what your specific relationship goals are so that I can give you that accountability and we can track your progress. My program is for 3 months. I've seen this really be such a life-changing container for so many women, and I
Mhm.
highly recommend, if the things that I shared with you on this episode were really helpful, that this is something that you jump on this opportunity while it's available. If you're interested in that, you can text me at my business line at 267-961-8884 and text the word session to me, and I'll reach back out to you with setting up your free session.
Awesome. And then also, how can they connect to you online?
Yes, you can connect to me online. I primarily use Instagram. My @ is at the real Bianca, and it should be like somewhere probably like in the show notes. The spelling of my name is a little bit different. So just make sure you check that before you look me up on Instagram. But I love
The
connecting with
spelling of her name is unique and we like it here. When I saw the spelling of your Bianca, I was like, oh, I love this.
Oh, thank you. I'm named after my grandmother. Her name is Beatrice.
Nice.
That's
Okay,
why
I love it. And yes, we will put all the links and the number in the show notes as well.
yes, thank you. And I love connecting with women on Instagram. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me or follow me on there.
Okay, awesome. All right, now we're going to move into three things with Bianca. I'm going to ask you three questions, helps the audience get to know you a little bit better. The first one is, I love setting this up as three questions, but the first one is a two-parter, 1A and 1B, you might say. So the first question is, how do you start and how do you end your day?
I always start my day by waking up. I take a couple of deep breaths. Sometimes that's just like taking 10 deep breaths.
Mhm.
Sometimes that looks like doing like a quick, like 10-15 minute meditation. And then from there, I always make a cup of tea because that helps me feel very relaxed early on in the morning. I like to do a very slow routine in the morning so that it sets up the rest of my day with me feeling very calm, because I tend to
Mhm.
be more of like an anxious person just like in general. So that helps
Okay.
me a lot. And in terms
Mhm.
of ending my day, I always do some yoga before bedtime. It helps to like loosen up my body and my muscles because I hold a lot of tension, anxiety,
Mhm.
and stress like in my shoulders. And so
Mhm.
sometimes like literally my shoulders will hurt. So
Wow.
that helps me out a lot. So if any of you listening feel that same way, I highly recommend try out some yoga before bed.
Awesome. Love that. All right. Number two, what's a goal or intention you set for yourself this year? And if you don't mind sharing, where do you stand with it now?
Of course. So a goal that I set for myself this year was just to be able to learn a lot more about working with children and kids. On
Mhm.
that goal now, I feel like I've gotten pretty far. So outside of what I'm actively doing in my business right now, I'm also in a program to become a registered behavioral technician in addition to what I'm doing in my master's program.
Mhm.
So I'm making a lot of progress on that goal. And I really wanted to do that. One, so that I can, offer more tips for the women I work with that have children, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the ways that we struggle with our partners, sometimes that shows up in the way that we deal with our children
Mm-hmm.
as well. And the other reason that I did that is because I thought it would give me a lot more knowledge and understanding the stress that some of the women that I work with have when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to them working with children as well, especially children who may have like more anxiety or
Mm-hmm.
like depression or different things that they're working through just with the world today.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love that. And the last question is, what's a book, podcast, or show, or just anything right now that's inspiring you?
Mhm. So right now, what is inspiring me, and it's so funny, it's like not a typical personal development thing, but a lot of the movies and shows that I've been watching have been inspiring me a lot. I just now started The Lincoln Lawyer. So amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Reminds me there's goodness in the world. So I love watching shows like that because it
Mm-hmm.
helps to put things in a perspective. And I think that that's really helpful for helping professionals in any industry in
Mm-hmm.
general, because burnout is real. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
huge thing. And it's good to have these, little outlets of things that you can look
Mm-hmm.
forward to watching.
I actually love that, and I love you saying that because I often when I'm meeting with my therapist, I often ask her, I'm always checking to make sure she's okay because I just could only imagine like how heavy it must feel when you're all day absorbing other people's information, other people's issues. And it's like they, as service professionals who are helping others, you also have to have a outlet yourself. And Lincoln Lawyer is good, and it is something that feels like hopeful that the world isn't all trash. Like not everyone is trash. There are some people who are actually good. So I'm really glad you have that outlet for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, Beaonca, I just first want to thank you so much for the time today and for coming on the show and spending some time with us. And you can always come back in the future. But before you leave us, I'd like for you to give the audience three things that they can take away from our conversation today.
Yes, three things you can take away. The first being give yourself some grace because it's hard to do this work and not every person actively chooses to do this every day. So that's the first thing. Two, do something to celebrate yourself, whether that is maybe like you go out and try a new hobby or you eat something that you really like. Do something to actively get in the routine of celebrating yourself because you're much more likely to remain consistent with doing things that are difficult. The third thing that I really want you to take away from this conversation is that you're only human. So everyone is going to make mistakes with things. Everyone has things to work on. Just because you may be at a lower level of differentiation doesn't mean you're always going to be there. You can always progress. You can always get better. And even if somebody else isn't specifically working on that, you better believe they're working on something else.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Again, I wish you have a lot going on. You're working on a lot. So continued success to you, my friend. And like I said, feel free to check in with us in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.